Yo, another week, another fight podcast. As always, it's your boy Mehran. I'm here with the illustrious Dave.
How's it going, everybody? We really
So
gotta get an intro.
we really do, but we have not figured out an intro, an outro, how to do a soundboard, how to do. We haven't done a lot of the podcast things yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. The
Mhm.
important things are getting episodes out. And speaking of which, this episode, we are here to recap the weekend. This is the weekend of August 9th, 2020. A very tumultuous year in history. So a lot went down. A UFC event, a PBC card,
Bellator.
Bellator card, some sort of grappling tournament. I forgot which one. It was going on while the UFC card was going on. It was on Flow Grappling, and I was like catching the highlights, and I was like, "Whoa!" Not necessarily important, but it happened. So a lot of stuff happened this weekend. Really, all you were missing was like one championship and like a kickboxing event. You would have had the whole gambit. But yeah, where do you want to start?
We can start with the UFC.
Yeah, so that was Derek Lewis versus Kelly Olynyk. Really an action-packed card.
Alexei
Olynyk. What did I say?
to Kelly Olynyk, who is a basketball player for
Oh, yeah.
the Miami Heat, best team in the NBA.
I mean, sure. It's a team in the NBA. They are a team in the NBA. Are they in the playoffs?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What seed are they?
They were top three.
Because I know Lakers just clinched last week. This is a side tangent, y'all. Sorry about that, but the bubble is going on in basketball and it's going
We are
particularly
number 4.
well. Oh, makes sense. Bucks number 1.
Yes, Bucks, Raptors, Celtics, Heat.
Yeah, the Raptors are really good. Like really, really good.
Yeah, but we're gonna save that for another NBA podcast.
Yeah, you're right. You're
back
right.
to Derek Lewis versus Alexei Olynyk.
But yeah, no, for real. So actually, one more interesting point on the NBA. I do wonder how much the NBA being back hurts the UFC's bottom line and boxing's, right? Because there was a time when there was literally nothing else to watch, and people were watching on ESPN Plus, especially the fight nights because they're free, because they had nothing else to watch. But last night there were NBA games going on during this.
I don't know. I think that I can't speak for the UFC because they don't really show a lot of viewership numbers.
They do
in
not.
General. Boxing, the top ranked cards on ESPN were probably like around 250, 300 viewers, which is like meh. And the Showtime card that was this past weekend had like 250,000 viewers. So
that's pretty good, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're decent.
Yeah.
But like, I think that, as I've always said, I feel as though people who watch the NBA are going to watch the NBA. So
for sure, if the NBA is, that's kind of my point though, is if the NBA is there, how many people have went from watching this to watching that, right? You know what I'm saying? Because they probably had inflated numbers beforehand because it wasn't back.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is if those are the inflated numbers, then that's pretty
bad.
Spectacular.
I understand what you're saying. But yeah, so the people who did watch, Derek Lewis is a savage.
Oh, yeah.
Is an absolute savage.
It was a fun fight though.
Dude, that was a great fight. Like, they actually fought, which is great. Because, like, oftentimes with Derek Lewis fights, you get one guy just beating up on Derek Lewis until he knocks him out, or, like, Derek Lewis, like, surviving until he knocks him out. And then, but last night, it was like Derek Lewis was grappling. He was moving around in exchanges. Like, you can see he got better skill-wise, you know?
Yeah. He was saying that he came in better shape than usual.
Definitely looked in better shape.
He was still at the limit, but it sounded like he didn't have to cut as much as like he normally would. But yeah, it was fun. Olynyk is scary. I don't know. I've never really been like, there are guys who are scary on the ground, but for some reason, I think it's because he looks so unassuming. Like Alexei Olynyk looks so much scarier on the ground than anybody else.
And because he's just so big and strong, right? Anytime a heavyweight is technical on the ground, you're screwed. I, for one, am really impressed that, like, Lewis was able to kind of flow with him on the ground. And that was, like, the most surprising part of this fight.
Yeah, because he had some interesting submissions.
So there was a
Darce in there somewhere.
There was. He tried for Darce. He tried for his Ezekiel. Immediately out the gate, he tries for his Ezekiel, right? That's Olynyk's bread and butter. That's what he always goes to. He tries for the Ezekiel. But what was more interesting is he had him in a Keisakatami, or as they were calling it, a scarf hold, for a long time. Mm-hmm. And Derek Lewis was tough enough to withstand it, which it's like, it's not a submission per se, but it's highly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
right?
But he paid the price for that. I don't
He
know if
was
you saw
gassed.
in the
He was
middle in the break, they were like rubbing his arms out.
Dude, he was
Yeah,
gassed. It's so much out of you to hold a man like that, like Derek
especially
Lewis
Derek
size.
Lewis. Yeah,
Yeah, like that's crazy. But that Casey Katami is like that's a dominant position, and the fact that he wasn't able to submit him from that position because it's like again in judo that's like the win. Like
mm,
once you have them down like that, and they're not really going anywhere. In jiu-jitsu, that's often the end too if you're going against someone who knows what they're doing. So it's like it's kind of amazing, frankly, that Derek Lewis was able to get out of it, get back to his feet, kind of when get mount a couple times, was able to
yeah.
pull off a
He had
couple
some good
sweeps.
reverse. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was interesting. I remember I was watching like a pre-fight thing, and this guy was talking about how he always is like defending grappling, and he's like grappling in MMA. He was like, people were like, "Oh, just get up," and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's not that easy to just get up. This is very technical." And then he was like, he was showing someone a Derek Lewis fight where he literally just pushed the guy off of him and got up, and
and
he was
got
just
up.
like, "Well, I look stupid," but like that's
And
it. It's really he is just so powerful
so
and so
strong.
strong. And then like that second round, it was just brutal.
And he's just getting like the levels he jumped though, right? Because like what I was most impressed by this fight is the level of skill it looks like he's jumped, like staying calm, staying composed,
Mm-hmm.
knowing the right thing to do, and then doing the right thing. Like Derek Lewis never looked like an idiot in this fight, which is a
Right.
big deal, right? He always looked like, I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm at. Like there were a couple technical mistakes here and there, but like it wasn't anything like super fatal. There was no
Mm-hmm.
like, man, that is really wrong and he should not be doing that. But he got lucky.
He has some interesting kicks too. Maybe I haven't watched enough of him, but I feel
Yeah.
like I've watched a lot. But like some of those jumping kicks, I was like,
But like that's kind of his thing. He likes like the explosive attacks.
yeah. But it's just like I don't know. It looked a little more explosive than usual.
Well, that's for sure. And that might just be because he came in better shape.
Yeah, and he says he wants to lose 15 more.
And he says he wants to come back no later like no later than December at like 250.
Yeah, he wants to
And
fight Curtis Blades, which sign me up.
okay, that's an interesting decision. So there are speaking of like wrestlers in MMA who decided to leave the UFC. um,
Yeah. So if you guys don't know, Corey Anderson is a pretty prominent light heavyweight contender. He's top four, I believe.
he is. He only
He
lost to
is
Ian.
coming off of a
He,
brutal knockout loss, but he's still one of the best light heavyweights in the
He
game
only
for sure.
lost to Ian Blut. I can't pronounce his last name.
Jan Blachowicz.
Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah.
Blachowicz. Yes.
But yeah, he is a very, very talented fighter, and was definitely in some form of title contention.
Up
And
until that loss, he was
yeah,
slated to fight John next.
yeah, and then Bellator threw him the bag, and he left.
Did Bellator? I'm a little confused. I'm very confused on the number of points here. Corey leaves. Corey's not done with his contract, so that means the UFC bought him out of his contract. I'm assuming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or do they just let you? Like, how does that even work? I am not sure. The
Usually they
UFC,
don't buy people out. Like you
yeah,
usually have to fight it out or
but he
get
has
cut.
fights. He has fights left, and he didn't get
Yeah,
cut, and
he
he
didn't
didn't.
get cut.
He got let go. So I'm assuming they gave him some money to leave. Is that how much Dana and him hate each other? Like that's
I
crazy.
don't know. Is there a backstory there?
They just really don't like each other, and like Corey, rightfully so, has always said the UFC has mistreated him and it has not promoted him correctly. Dana, even when he wins, is super critical of him in the media and is just very, very like talks down about his fighting style, talks down about his chances. For some reason, they don't get along. But so I watched Corey on like Rogan's podcast, and by all intents and purposes, he seems like a super nice, down to earth guy. Like he shoots bows, he like goes to work every day. Like he seems like this really just down to earth country dude that
Yeah,
likes to wrestle.
I don't think, which is funny because he's from Jersey of all
Yeah.
places, but I feel like Dana doesn't like wrestle first guys very much.
That's a possibility, but I mean I would point to Khabib. I'd point to like people like
But see,
DC.
I think the difference in a lot of those guys that you named is that, and I don't think this is correct, but I also see this from a lot of fans. It's the like Khabib gets you down and then pummels you.
It's true.
DC, he kind of, I'm not gonna say it's a secondary wrestling, but he does a lot of kickboxing, a
That's
lot of
true. That's
kickboxing,
true. That's
and
true.
maybe his kickboxing is to set up his grappling, but he does a lot of kickboxing. He
So
not
he punches first and then he shoots. I agree.
Yeah, he punches to set up his wrestling, and then
Yeah.
he mauls you on the ground or submits you.
Yes.
I think he doesn't favor the wrestle first guys. Like I remember he shitted on Curtis Blades in his last fight.
He did. And
Uh,
that's actually why he reminded me of Corey, because he shitted on Curtis and he shitted on Corey. And I'm
yeah.
not sure. Like, I mean, he also hated Tyron, but like
Which
Tyron is
I don't really get the Curtis Blades thing because literally in the fight before this, he knocked out JDS.
starched
And
him.
then in the fight before that, he literally rained hell on a guy for 3 rounds, and then they had to stop the fight because
I think it's got to be a money thing, right? I think it's got to be he thinks, or rather, okay, hear me out. It's not just the wrestling. It is the wrestling, but I also think that Dana is able to sell a certain type of fighter, and Corey Anderson and Curtis Blades are people he can't sell in his opinion, right? So if he can't sell you, then he feels like he can't do his job as a promoter, and therefore he doesn't like you.
right.
That's my understanding, because it's not so much the style of fighting, right? Because like even though he hated Askren for a while because Askren hated him, he traded Demetrius for him,
Right.
like.
Askren has a personality though. I think that's
But
like the other thing.
that's kind of my point. That's what I'm getting at, right? It's like
Like Corey is a very like
laid back dude.
punch bag.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to work. I'm doing this. I'm getting the fuck out.
Just like a blue collar nice guy.
Yeah. But
And
then
so
he's very talented though. I like him at Bellator though. I think he's gonna get there.
I think he can also jump around between the heavyweight and light heavyweight, kind of like Bader there, and it's going to be a great challenge for Bader, and they're going to build him properly, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see.
Yeah, I could see him getting a shot after his first fight. Like
Yeah,
if he does
probably
well in his
one
first
fight
fight, he's gonna probably go for either the light heavyweight or the heavyweight title at Bellator for sure.
for
But
sure. And
I feel like Bellator gets a lot of flack for being like the secondary league, but I also applaud them for like they do really well with the guys that sort of like don't necessarily thrive in the UFC.
that don't fit, right?
Yeah.
So this was on the episode we didn't release, but we talked about Bellator a little bit in that episode, and we talked about their first card back. And one of the first guys that we talked about, obviously, was Sergio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sergio Pettis, and sort of his rise in Bellator and him becoming a star in Bellator and him fighting and winning the title there and being a champion. And sort of Pico and him coming up in Bellator. Bellator now has this crop of athletes, and Corey's going to join those ranks, that are Bellator products, right? That aren't necessarily always going to be associated with the UFC. I think pretty quickly Corey's also going to fall into that same line, because of his personality and because I think Bellator will fit him better and his aesthetic better as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're building a very, very strong roster. They're building a diverse roster in terms of the types of like headline fighters they have. Like Pico is like this amazing kind of like freak who's great at striking, great at wrestling. You brought up Aaron McKee, who's a great wrestler. Who else did we bring up last time? Sergio Pettis, obviously superstar
One
brother.
person we forgot, even though he left, Roy McDonald. It's almost like a parallel, some similar parallel. Roy had a lot more fans than Corey did, but like Roy left out like a fight or two after his title fight against Robbie Lawler, and he became Bellator's like biggest star.
He was their guy. Rory and Douglas Lima and all them, like the old guard for sure is something that made Bellator even on the map. But now they're producing homegrown talent and developing homegrown talent in a way that I think is going to be great for them going forward. They had their first card back and then their second card back in the time since our last podcast. And those were both really cool to see. A lot of Sanford MMA guys fought on both cards actually, which was cool. So they're high quality product, good MMA, and a lot of fun to watch. So going back to the UFC card, it was interesting. What did you think of the co-main event?
I don't know, man. I don't like saying that guys should hang it up, but
Chris Weidman should hang it up.
Yeah, I've heard, but my thing is that I've heard so many good things about how he is with fighters. He should just become a coach. I know it's not the same fighters. You've been around fighters. I've been around fighters. Like they have that sort of like,
They have the drive. They
yeah,
have that
it's like
thing,
I
right?
can compete with the best of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And especially at that level, like they don't necessarily, not that they don't want to coach and help people, but they think they can also do it while being great, you know?
but it's not. But with Weidman, it's like
You've already been great.
You don't have anything else to prove.
You've beaten the GOAT. You know?
Yes,
What more can you want?
you beat a prime or maybe slightly out of his prime Anderson Silva. Maybe.
Definitely prime. And the thing
Yeah.
is, like, people can say what they want. Weidman has a Hall of Fame career. He's done a lot in the UFC. There's no reason for him to be hanging around, taking fights against, the number 11 guy and having a win, but a tough win nonetheless.
Mhm.
I thought,
He's not even ranked anymore. Well, he's gonna be ranked now, but
yeah,
like
he's going to be ranked now, but you're right. Weidman himself is not ranked. He's fighting the number 11 guy and having a super tough time with it too. Like he won, right? There's no doubt in my mind he won. He deserved to win that fight. But the thing is, neither fighter looked great fighting that fight, in my opinion.
right. And he's just not. He's not the same guy. He's not
He's not the
explosive. He's
All-American.
not explosive
Yeah.
anymore. He's not like. He's not. He's definitely not as durable anymore.
And
And
it's
it's
to be
just
expected after this long in fighting, right?
right. And it's
It's
like,
to be expected.
what do you expect? What does he expect from himself at this point in his career? Because he just showed he can't go 5. So you're not going for a title fight. Like what are you fighting for at this point?
And the thing is,
Does he? I don't think he needs the money
no, definitely not.
because
He seems like a smart
his
dude.
gym is very successful,
Yeah.
and especially if he goes into head coaching, he has Aljo is there.
And I'm
Alaquinta is
sure
there. Like there's a lot of guys there.
Ray Longo and Matt Serra, I'm sure, would welcome him with open arms to
Yeah,
be like, hey, come help out. And would take care of him the way he needs to be
and
taken care of.
he's an incredible wrestler. He's maybe even better MMA wrestler than he was at collegiate wrestling. So it's not like he wouldn't have a strong niche there. I just don't. I don't like seeing fighters fighting for the sake of fighting because it usually doesn't end well for them.
But also, I really don't like, number one, I agree. But number two, Weidman is not going to make any real noise. Like he's not going to beat Izzy at middleweight.
No, absolutely not.
He's definitely like he's not going to beat the killers at 205. That's already been proven.
Yeah,
So
I don't think he beats anybody in the top 5 of middleweight.
like
For
who's he
sure.
going to fight? Like is he going to fight like Yoel Romero? Like
Again,
who's there to fight,
yeah, because
Because
he's
you're
not
not
beating
fight.
Romero.
Yeah, he's not beating Romero. He shouldn't fight Whitaker. He
The only
shouldn't
thing that
fight
I could think
Till.
of is that they might toss him to Shabazian, but
Oh,
that's
to give
it.
Shabazian a bounce back.
Yeah, but that's it. Like, and do you really want to be that guy? Like, you're what, a top 3
I
or
mean,
4 middleweight ever, maybe? Like,
there's no need to do this.
yeah,
I mean, speaking of being that guy, they tried to make Derek Brunson that guy, and boy, did that not go well.
yeah,
No, Derek Brunson's been training with Sanford and Henry Hoof for the last 2 fights, and it's really shown. We
yeah,
we were both wrong on that. Baltimore Cisco, like that man, hair color or not, came through in a big way,
yeah.
and
But
so
yeah,
that was really cool to see.
Brunson's a little younger than Wyman too.
Oh no,
Not
but
much,
yeah,
but yeah,
Brunson's been
and
around a while,
fresher.
but he's definitely less fights.
Yeah, but yeah,
Brunson and
Wyman needs
like
to hang it up.
no, I agree. I agree. There were lots of other good fights last night too. A lot of the prelims were exciting. These prelims are actually getting really, really good.
Because I think guys realize that they have nothing to lose
What do you
and
mean?
a lot to gain. I guess I would probably say that.
Like what do you mean by that? Like in the sense that like, well, yeah, I actually
Like, look at
agree. Oh yeah,
Chimaev.
yeah, yeah. Hamzat,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, he has like you have everything to gain from showing out on these cards because one, there's not a lot of talent available, especially if they're stateside,
Mm-hmm.
and two, Dana has already shown like if you show up and do your thing on these cards, you're going to get bigger and better opportunities moving forward. So there's a lot of opportunity there.
Speaking of opportunity, one of the guys from my gym, Matt Semlisberger, actually just got signed to the UFC, and he's fighting on the Frankie Edgar card. So shout outs to him. Um, or not Frankie Edgar. Edgar Moon. What is it? The fighter that's gonna fight is Matt Semlisberger, and he's gonna debut on August 22nd at UFC Fight Night. Munoz versus Edgar in Las Vegas. So that's pretty exciting. And like you were saying, a lot of these fighters realize that showing out in the prelims is really good, and I think it's been really good for the product as well. I just hope they're getting paid the way they should be getting paid,
Yeah, me too.
because that's always the risk with the UFC that I'm always like wary of. I'm like, wow, they're getting all these great talented guys to come out, and they're getting them out multiple times, and I'm like, are they paying them well? But
Yeah,
what do
yeah,
you
some interesting things have come out about their pay during this time too, which
with
we'll
that
talk
whole
about that later.
lawsuit thing? Yeah,
No,
I
but it's
don't,
like no, the like if your fight gets canceled completely, you don't get your full show money.
which is kind of ridiculous, right? Because it's
Yeah,
like I made weight, I showed up, that's not my fault.
yeah, whatever though. Speaking of there,
It is the game. You want to talk about this PBC card that happened last night, real quick?
sure. I will admit it. That card was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. So this card was in Los Angeles, which is also it was headlined by Jamal James fighting Thomas Dulorme for the vacant interim WBA welterweight title. This is like the fourth WBA title that's at 147 right now, which is we've talked about that before. But anyway,
Yes, we have.
it was a good fight. Early on, Dulorme was kind of going back and forth with Jamal James. It was kind of even through like the first 4 or 5 rounds. And then Jamal James just took over from there. Dulorme is not old. He's actually 2 years younger than Jamal James, but he's been around the block a little bit.
I
He's
feel like
fought,
he's seasoned fighter. Like
yeah, he's
this,
fought Jesse Vargas, Jadeus Ugas,
yeah.
Henry Lundy, Terrence Crawford. Like
He's
he's a,
seasoned. He's a
yeah,
vet. He's a vet.
yeah. So Jamal James, I've always been a fan of his. He's a very good guy. He's a very involved with his community in Minnesota. I don't know if you saw some of the build up in the thing, but he
Yep.
was like, I run by the area where George Floyd was murdered, and like that's my community. And like they were talking about how he in his gym helped made like a outdoor supermarket because all the supermarkets in their area had closed down because of the immediate protests in the area. So I've always rooting for Jamal James. I've kind of thought that PBC didn't really move him the right way, but now that he has an interim belt, that puts him in a good position to fight somebody. In like 2 weeks, Ugas is actually fighting for the regular WBA welterweight title. So I don't know if they might be making that into a rematch because Ugas beat him a couple of years ago, or if they're going to have him fight Keith Thurman. I think those are probably the two options that they have for him lined up. But it was a really good fight. There was also an interesting fight. The opening bout had David Morrell, who was 2-0, and he was fighting for the interim WBA super middleweight title at 2-0.
Such a weird,
Yeah,
weird,
the
weird situation, man.
WBA needs to be stopped. But
I don't understand it. Like I was watching it and I was just confused.
yeah, that was an interesting fight. So
Interesting is the
I
word
have a
for it.
lot of qualms about fast tracking boxers specifically because there's no going back.
Well, because a loss means so much in boxing, right?
Yeah.
Think about
But it's
MMA.
not even the loss part. It's the fact that like you're the interim WBA champion at 168, where you don't go anywhere but the top 10
Well, because
now.
you have to now fight,
Yeah.
people with
You're
names
fighting you're
that are
fighting
worth it.
contenders, if
But
not
also,
champions.
but also that's because a single loss in boxing means so damn much.
Right.
Right? As soon as you get the one on your name, like it changes your entire career.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense, but
And it's ridiculous.
whatever.
And in MMA, it's kind of like, okay, you fight a contender, that's great. You lose to him, that you'll be back. You win, that's just great. That's only good things happen to you.
Right. Like if the Derek Brunson and Edmund Shabazian fight was a boxing fight, Shabazian's career might be over.
And it's very far from over. Like,
Right.
and it's just so.
Yeah.
I don't know. That entire fight, I was just watching like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
This
it was weird. So it looked like it really looked like when you step up a prospect, like, all right, we're gonna give him a veteran. This one happened to be undefeated, and he was not bad. Lennox Allen was not bad, but it looked like, oh, I'm stepping up a prospect to get him into that contender area. But this one just happened to be 2-0. Now he was a decorated amateur. He's from Cuba, so I have less qualms about that than other fighters. But you know, it was good. He was pretty dominant. I'm a little concerned about his power at like the elite level,
feels,
but
yeah.
he's good. He's really good, and now he's the interim WBA champion at 168. So
For whatever
Colin
that's
Smith
worth,
is the
he made it.
real champion. I don't know what happened to the regular belt because Canelo won that, but he dropped it, so I guess it's vacant. But
Do they just fight for the regular then?
I don't know.
I
Who
mean,
knows?
that's kind of how that goes, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and then we had Omar Juarez. He won a decision. It was very uneventful. I actually think the after card was more interesting. So they had a heavyweight fight with Michael Coffey. He knocked out Luis Pena. Vito Milnecki Jr., who's like this 18-year-old kid. He just graduated high school, but he's 6-0 now. He knocked out his fighter. Interesting enough, his first fight was on a top rank card, and he was signed to top rank. And then now he's been with PBC ever since his first fight, which is weird. Usually that doesn't happen that early. But yeah, and then our guy, Michael Fox, he actually corrected people on Twitter. His name is Michael, not
Michael
McCall.
Fox, yeah.
He lost.
Yeah,
It
I
was
agree with that.
yeah.
That was the judges
Yeah.
siding with the smaller guy, I feel like.
Yeah, I could see it being a close loss maybe, but I thought he did enough to win. And I also, that one card where it was 99-90 was just awful.
Yeah, there was some weird judging, in my opinion, in that fight.
Yeah.
So I rewatched it this morning, I was just like, what is going on? Like, why is this? I don't know. Professor Mike, Professor he's a staple. He's like a real like DMB boxing, right? He's around the way. He's still like you can.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the cooler things is like when you watch him fight, like he just knows the sport so well. So like his fighting style is very very influenced by like the good fundamentals of boxing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm watching this fight and it was obviously a tough fight, right? I'm not going to say like Fox was like destroying the guy and clearly had won, but the way I looked at it, and again biased eyes here, definitely looked like he edged him out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I don't really see what the judges were seeing
And
on that one.
his style is sort of like amplified by his size at that
Yep.
weight. So I'm not gonna say it's very easy, but like him being a technical boxer makes it very hard for guys to fight him because he's so big for that weight.
I'll give, what is it, Santa Maria, I believe the other guy's
Yeah,
name
he was
was,
good
right?
though. He was very
Yeah.
good, very good pressure fighter. It was a
I'll,
very good fight too. I think
yes,
that's something
exactly.
we didn't really touch on.
Yeah.
Incredible fight, very good,
That's what I was
very
going to
very
say.
interesting infighting. Which for him again, Michael Fox is like 6'3", 6'4"
Yeah.
at 147. So it was interesting to see him doing a lot of infighting.
I was going to say, I give Santa Maria all the credit in the world for getting inside of the professor's jab, getting inside of Professor Mike's jab and like staying in there. He used that the thing boxers do. I don't know what it's called, where he rams your shoulder into you, right, to close the gap. He did that excellently all fight, right?
Yeah, it's
Like
just pushing. I don't think it has any special name, but
like he led with that shoulder like all night. Like every time like Professor Mike would jab, he'd duck under it, lead with the shoulder, come right into his chest.
technically
I
illegal. But who cares?
I mean, hey, the ref don't call it. It's not his fault.
Yeah. But
So
yeah,
it was a good fight.
yeah, Mike is really good. I think like if that was your first time seeing him, I feel like it's not going to do him enough justice because he only lost to an Olympian before that.
Yeah.
And then his next fight immediately after that, he beat another Olympian, an Olympic medalist this time. He beat one. So he's very, very talented. and I think he's definitely gonna be a player at 147 if he stays at 147. I don't know if that was just like a Corona fight because he fights at 140 normally.
Yeah, I'm about
So
to say he usually cuts a little more, doesn't
yeah,
he?
so I
Like,
don't know
yeah,
whether that was like a Corona fight or that's where he's going to feels like he's more comfortable at. But he's gonna be a problem for any. He's gonna be a tough out for anybody just because he's so technical
he's
and so big
like,
that it's just like it's gonna be hard for anybody to get in on him.
yeah, but you win some, you lose some.
Yeah,
Shout out to Professor Mike.
yeah, for sure. You want to go to the Bellator card?
I was gonna, yeah, let's go to which Bellator card because we kind of touched on the
Um,
first one.
I was gonna touch on the most recent one.
Yeah, sure.
So that was headlined by Michael Chandler and Benson Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
Henderson is one of my favorite fighters, also.
Unfortunate night for you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like, oh my god, like I'm crying in my chair that Benson
I mean,
Henderson
again,
lost, but I just like his
Benson.
style and like for me, even when like I wasn't really into MMA, he was a fighter that I knew because I didn't really see a lot of black fighters back then. And like for him, and he was like, and I don't know why I like Taekwondo fighters in MMA, but that's just, yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
he's the godfather of the low calf kick. So
So yeah, it was actually a good fight. Benson
yeah,
Henderson, Mike Chandler, and I think again, another Henry Hoof product here in Chandler doing the right things, sticking to the game plan, and just really open up like a can of whoop ass. Like he did a good job.
yeah. I'm interested to see what's going to happen moving forward because he is a free agent.
I think he stays at Bellator. Like there's no reason to come to the UFC, right?
I mean, not really. I guess maybe like a new challenge or something. Maybe I don't know,
Yeah,
but
I don't know, cause like what advantage does he have by coming to the UFC, right? Because I feel like at least. So here's my thing for the UFC. It doesn't make sense to make Michael Chandler look great if he comes over,
mm-hmm.
right? Because they want to keep making people believe that Bellator is subpar. So if he comes over and they build him correctly and he starts winning everything, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, that was the Bellator champ. Of course he's winning everything correctly, right?
is
They're gonna
that
do
is that a new thing?
no,
Because
it's
they
not.
definitely had Eddie Alvarez.
Think about what they did to Askren,
Mm-hmm.
right? They immediately gave him to Robbie
Robbie,
Lawler.
yeah,
Yeah. And the reason is like they don't want people to look good. They want you to be like, yeah, this is the UFC. We're the best.
right,
And then build you up. It's like the first thing they're gonna do is try and feed him to the wolves. And then kind of like use him from there, right?
right.
Sort of put him in his place, take away his negotiating power.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess from Michael Chandler's perspective, yeah, Bellator has always treated him well, and he's probably one of the more popular Bellator athletes in the organization. But he's also a 3-time lightweight
Yes.
champion at Bellator, so
3 time,
he
yeah.
might be like, I don't really know. I mean,
What
they
to
love
do?
me here. I get good money. I guess that could be. A lot of people don't have that in any job. So
Yeah. And he has relative job security.
yeah, but it's also, I guess, like I feel like from a fighting perspective, I could see him being like, well, I would want to challenge myself with
I want to fight the best of the best.
allegedly, yeah.
Yeah, and allegedly.
Which I don't necessarily agree with completely, but
And so
um,
I mean he fought in Strike Force, like he did what he's supposed to
mhm,
do. So maybe he does come over.
yeah. But I was saying is I don't necessarily agree with the fact that I mean, a lot of the top MMA fighters are in the UFC, of course, but I think there's plenty of guys in Bellator that I think could thrive in the UFC and challenge for titles.
I think the talent is more equally distributed
Yeah.
across one Bellator and UFC than most people would admit to in the
Mm-hmm.
UFC, right? I think especially at the lower weight classes, there's so many dangerous guys in one FC, right? So many
Right.
dangerous strikers, so many super technical people. I think even there bigger people like from Coach Ong to so many others in the upper levels, like the upper weight classes could also compete in the
Mm-hmm.
UFC because all these guys train together, right? Sanford, for example, just again, I keep going back to this example, but even if you go to Duke Rufus Sports or if you go to American Top Team, all these champions are training together from different
Right.
organizations. These are each other's sparring partners. They're who they're learning from. So there's no reason to believe that they wouldn't do well against the competition they're in the training room
Mm-hmm.
against every
For
day.
sure. Yeah.
So I don't know. So yeah, that Bellator card I think overall was a good one as well. I think I'm surprised that Benson Henderson is still fighting, to be honest, to a certain extent. But he looks like he should be there. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like with Weidman where we're like, why is this guy still here? Why doesn't this dude go home?
Right. Yeah. It didn't look. I actually thought he was
He looked great.
winning. I
Yeah,
guess that round. Um. But yeah, you know, I guess that kind of. I think Bellator in general, when it comes to their talent, it's a little top heavy,
that is true.
which gives guys like Benson Henderson who have the ability to still fight at that level to thrive at that level because there's not a lot of guys below him aren't going to be able to beat him, and he'll still be
Exactly.
competitive with the guys at the top.
Not every so that is one thing the UFC has. Everyone in the UFC is a killer,
Yeah,
right? Not everyone in Bellator is a killer. So
right.
like it's like yes, the top of the top in all organizations are can definitely compete anywhere in the world, but the UFC roster from top to bottom can compete anywhere in the world.
Here's a hot take. What do you think about Weidman going to Bellator if he
I'm about to say
if that
that's
was a thing?
we found Weidman's home, right? Just go to Bellator and be happy if he
Yeah,
wants to fight.
yeah, that'd be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Who's I don't even know who's the middleweight. I know Lima's. They're about to have Lima fight for it against another guy. We were talking about UFC guys who got more love in Bellator. Gegard Mousasi, that's who Douglas Lima's fighting for the
Yes, I was about to say,
middleweight
isn't it
strap.
Musasi, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah, because he was supposed to fight.
Lovato, but
Yeah, but
Lovato's
he
sick.
has brain
Yeah, he has like
something.
something
It's
in
not a
his head.
tumor.
It sounds like it's a tumor though. He has holes in his head.
Yeah,
He has like lots of holes, and they're like really worried because it's like, hey, you have way too many in your holes in your head to be fighting
yeah, but he's still competing in grappling.
in jujitsu. But he
Yeah,
claims that like that's okay because he's like, I'm not getting hit in the head. But I'm like,
yeah,
high level jujitsu hurts too. I don't know,
yeah.
but yeah,
Um,
it sucks though. Lovato is so good and is so talented. It would have been great to see him continue to fight.
yeah. I hope he's able to, but
Yep,
obviously we don't want him to do anything that would put his life in danger.
not at all.
Um, I guess we can talk about the other Bellator card too, the one from I guess now is 2 weeks ago.
We talked about that a little earlier in the
Yeah,
episode.
yeah.
We talked
But
about Pico and Justin
Sergio Pettis, yeah.
and Sergio. I
All
think
right,
that's
so
it. All right, guys. I think that's it for today. Let us know if we missed anything, and we definitely like. There's been a lot of fights to go down in this past 2 weeks since we talked to y'all. So yeah, I'm sure we missed. I know one came back, and they had some great fights. Watching Petch fight was cool, and they had some just amazing striking going on. Right, just amazing kickboxing and Muay Thai, and they have another event coming up, right?
yeah, on Friday, I believe.
Yeah, so we're probably going to tune
Yeah,
into that
Friday the
as well.
14th. Yeah.
We've been trying to live tweet all our events from our page, so feel free to follow us on, you know, another fight pod. And I think that's it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You got anything to say before we go?
Um, not really. I guess just like a quick like David Benavidez is just fighting this weekend too. He's defending his belt against Romer Angulo. Just to correct from before, I said it was Alfredo Angulo, but this is Romer Alexis Angulo. Should be a better fight than if it was Alfredo Angulo for sure. But yeah, so we should have a lot to talk about coming days.
All right, man. Peace and love. Thanks for tuning in.
See y'all.